political cards for turn 3 come up. You notice the next cards are set for 1742. You will get all the events available. There's no randomness there or anything. You just don't know the order they come up in, but you know they come up in the year they're supposed to, etc. So we got 2 events, as always. This time they're all Prussian, French, and Austrian. This one has very little effect. It pushes some harm against the Prussians-Russian relationship. France is probably completely uninterested in this. They still have the little token because they're the only ones who want a battle so far. So they're not terribly intrigued by that. This one's more interesting to them, though. This one's one that's really kind of weird. It hurts France and Italy, but helps the Prussians in Saxony. Now, I don't really care about the Prussians as the French. So I'm not going to take into account, hey, maybe the Prussians want to do that. They can rely on this. If I win on that, that's fine. I don't care, you know, if they're preventing the Russians from interfering more. However, I look at my cards, and hey, I got a strong diamond suit. But diamonds is up here, and I would really rather have support, you know, for fights there. So I'm a little loath to play that. Clubs, I don't think I'm anywhere near clubs, and that's a pretty damn good card. There's clubs down here and up here, but I'm not going to be fighting in those areas. There's clubs over here that maybe I want to play in, but I don't have an opponent there. So I think that's what I'm going to choose, because hearts could be valuable up here. It doesn't look like clubs are going to be useful in the long term. So that's what I'm going to choose as the suit. And now everybody's got to make their decisions. And basically, the pragmatics are probably completely uninterested in playing a card. I'm not even going to think about them. Banking cards is generally not something I see as terribly valuable. Okay. France and Prussia have intervened. Now, I would light it by playing a card. Pragmatics, I said, aren't going to play. Austria has a hand with a club and some reserve cards. But with 2 people playing already, wow, I probably can't win with that 5 of clubs. Clubs isn't terribly valuable to the Austrians either. So maybe it's worth banking it just on the chance. The other option is I could play a reserve card. That's pretty harsh. What I'm going to do, and this is why a die is here, is to make decisions, even in battle, is on a 1, I'll play a reserve card. On a 2 through 5, because I think it's pretty valuable, I'll put the 5 of clubs, and otherwise, on the 6, I'm just not going to play in it. I don't think there's too much harm to me throwing a club in there, because I don't want somebody sandbagging me with a low card, or even an offsuit card, just to try to shy me away. 2, that means I'm going to play the 5 of clubs. Now, I believe, yeah, this is just pipe crap. I believe everybody ended up beating. Okay, so the French are, and the politics is actually, to me, really a beautiful part of it. This is why I kind of don't know if I'd like Frederick as much, because it focuses just on that kind of maneuver and combat side of the game. It doesn't deal with the politics. I haven't read the rules, or if I did, it's been a long, long time, and I've never played it. But it doesn't deal with the politics. It's only a 2-player game, so there's a lot less sort of room for neat stuff to happen. However, I do like the way the game plays out enough that I wanted a copy when I found one cheap. So the French have first call. Like I said, they don't really give a shit about this, so they're going to take this, and they do not want it to play. They're going to cancel that out so the Prussians can't use it. And the Prussians, well, so that's the French. The Prussians say, gosh, if I don't take this, Austria will. So I have to play to cancel that, which means the Austrians get to bank their card. And I'm going to put these underneath. I find that helps me remember what's been played and what has not. And now we look for what deck these are from. These are both from the blue deck, so they go over here. that's the politics phase. So now we get to play our Hussies. I think we were set up to do something, weren't we? 1, 2, 3, 4. Drop one there. Is that good enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it looks like it is. Do I care about this one? I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't really have any effect. I'll put it up here. I mean, I like to keep them on the board, but I don't know why, you know. Because everything's set already. Those people have to go, and there's just nothing it can really do. All right, and that dumps us back to the French side. On the France-Bavaria turn, I dealt out my cards. Bavaria's got quite a huge deck. They start off with 5 cards, and they're getting 2 per round because of the subsidies that the French give. Anyway, I'm not sure what to do with them because they don't have power in diamonds and really can't advance there. They've got a huge hand, which indicates all kind of resources and everything, but for whatever reason, those resources just don't work in this area. And I don't know, maybe I have hearts. I have some hearts, but not much. Mainly I have just a handful of clubs. And now what's nice, I don't mind that there's like a disincentive to move forward in any direction, but one wonders what it's meant to represent in all ways. Anyway, and you can look at some of it as political will, etc., but you can violate that will and then your army gets destroyed rather than the leader gets sacked, you know. Okay, so over here, this is the first interesting thing. So we decided that the French are out of supply here. That means I have to look up this army, army number 2, and I go over here and I do things right. My desire is always to erase, but I just write a 5 in there, just like I'm keeping it on scrap paper. And beyond that, I'm not sure what's going on yet. Because like I said, the Bavarians look like they've got a useless road ahead of them now. I can push forward and put more threat here, but I've got to be careful because of the Hussies. This is probably a safe place to be. This, probably not, because it can be cut with just 2 pieces. So unless I do something like the Prussians did, you know, stretching my supply line back with an army backing up my other army, I'm not going to be able to stay in supply if the Austrians choose to use them there. Having serious problems with my battery recharger. It partially charges for a little while and then cuts out on power. I thought maybe my light switch was attached to that socket, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Sometimes people do some crazy stuff with light switches. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out what to do with the French. Now they have some interesting options. This army could march down here and fight perfectly fine. It'll be in supply next turn, assuming that I can win this fight and drive the Austrian army far enough back. I've got a good hand of diamonds, so I think I'm going to probably do that. The problem is, of course, since I'm soloing this, I know that Tron only has 1 strength point, so there's a lot of advantages to making that attack. I'd be moving through this space, but I wouldn't be able to convert it because I'm out of supply. However, if I can get these guys out of the general region, I can upgrade, or I can probably perhaps capture this, and I can probably capture this, and I see all kinds of advantages in that direction. So unless I get a 1, I'm going to go for this. I like to leave some sort of randomness in it. Okay. So we go to there, and now we move 1, 2. I'll assume I'm going to win. Why should I assume that? Because that puts me near Pilsen. Do I care? I do care. Okay, we'll go 3 to here, and that gets me, I'll put a question mark there, because if this falls, I'm okay. And then here, 1, 2, 3, hey, do I want to move up to Budweis? I don't think so, but 1, I'm risk from these guys. I'm going to pull back with my 4th movement point. That lets me put another question mark here at Linz. Basically, if I can drive this out, I get a victory there. This, does it need to be somewhere? I think I had better be right next to my 1 unit, just in case things go badly. And here, I'll take that same precaution. I pretty much can't get cut out of supply for these 2 units. I haven't decided what's going on up here yet. The Austrians' bluff being called here. Well, how much of a bluff is it really? I've got very little in the way of diamonds, but I have 2 reserves. And that means I have like 19 points. I'm 4 points behind in terms of armies themselves. I really doubt that I want to fight this too heavily, although losing Tron, I don't get him back until winter. Luckily, that's right away. It'll be a victory point swap, but that's okay. The French are doing okay on victory points. Luckily, the French have a very large pool that they have to exhaust at this point. So I think I may just concede the battle because spending one of these to create a 4-point swing when I'm only losing 1 army unit, 1 strength point, well, conserving the points might be more valuable. So I'm going to just surrender to the French here. Oh, that's 2 of my leaders gone. Wow. And the French get a 2nd victory point in there. Plus, these convert because there's no longer a protection in their way. And the decisions the French made over there are fine. Over here, what have I done? Not much. I'm still holding here. Now, these are at risk of being attacked, but I have a good hand of spades. And then over here, I'm falling back just to make sure I'm in, well, I'm in home country, so I'm in supply. But my worry was if I try to push forward, which I may eventually want to do, I might be at some risk of getting cut off from supply, and I'd rather not have that happen. However, if the pragmatic army is going to be sitting here and there's no Austrian army on the board, I may well want to move forward. I don't think the Austrian army can start up here. I have to look that up. Maybe he can start in one of the major fortresses in the Netherlands. But there's no major fortress home place here. Let's see if he has some special rules. Yeah, I'm kind of... He can re-enter on a Dutch major fortress, yeah. Okay. So he can come back into play. And that puts me to the Prussia-Saxony turn. Factor of the way the supply rules work is, as long as you keep yourself next to your supply train, well, you're not entirely unassaultable, but the Hussars really aren't a problem. So that just slows your army down. It moves more slowly, but in this case I was able to take a territory there, I'm able to take a territory there. This guy is not exactly where he wants to be if he's going to fight a battle, but there also are not any Austrians that can launch an attack against him. So that all works out okay. And we go to the Austrian pragmatic turn. The Austrians do some subtle maneuvering just to get themselves into positions. Here it's very interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. I can drop Hussies here and here, and that's going to cut this army off, and it'll get hit for 2 losses this time. So, you know, taking Traun out is going to come at a significant cost. Up here, what I'm doing is I'm positioning myself so I can defend this, all of them. Somebody's got to come in and attack me, and I'm in hearts where I have a strong hand. That puts us to the winter phase. Okay. Winter's kind of weird here. So, 2 things happen at once, but basically I'm going to handle them maybe in the opposite order of what you're supposed to, but each person counts how many of these little things they have in their pool. So France has 4 of them. They get recorded 4 here. Now, the rules say after you record all of these, and I'll do it for the rest of them, but then you kind of fold the paper so you can't see what the score is. It's hidden trackable information. How much that hiding that adds to a game I really don't know, and I kind of don't like hidden trackable information for the most part, especially when it's clearly simple numbers like this that are openly, you know, there's only going to be 4 occasions where the numbers are collected. People are going to have a pretty good view of who's in the lead and who's not. I think the one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to let, for my own, I'm not going to let people add them. Like, if I can't just glance and kind of get a good feel. But because I play over time, you know, I'm going to just forget these. And I don't think people actually playing would forget as badly as I'm going to there. So I'm not going to spend any mental effort on adding them. I'm just going to glance. And if the numbers are very high for one person, hey, I know they're out of the running if they can't win the automatic victory. Okay, and we'll do that, and then the next thing we do is we get to buy troops, and there'll be some, I'll come back with some thinking about that. This is done simultaneously, and the number of troops you buy is all kind of announced at once. I can't do that when I'm soloing it, but what I am going to do, so France chose a couple of cards. They have a big number of diamonds cards. Although they might engage in diamonds, this 2-point card is probably not too important. And they're nowhere where they particularly want to engage in clubs that they see. So I'm going to spend these 12 points in cards, and that'll get them, because they're $4 each, 3 points in armies. Now I got to look at my French armies and see where I want to add troops. Well, where do I feel weak? Where do I feel strong? That's all kind of an interesting question. I'm allowed to add to where there's no supplies, which I think actually shouldn't be the case. But there's no restriction under the supply phase, right? And during the winter phase, it can just be given to a troop on the map, as far as I can see. Yeah. So, I could reinforce that, even though I can see now that the Austrians are going to hit it. Do I want to? Well, he'll be particularly weak if I don't. The main reason I'm buying these troops is because the cards that I have don't look like they're going to help right away. Although, of course, since I still have the marker for this, maybe they would. Maybe I could use them as a trump suit. Who knows? Anyway, 3 extra troops, 1, 4, 5, 2, and 3. Where do I want them? This is Belle-Ile, and he's in danger. I'm going to boost him. He's in a diamonds area. Whoa. I have decent diamonds, if I recall correctly. Okay, so we'll boost him up from 5, and I was buying 3 troops with my 12 points, all the way up to the max of 8. Oh, where this Malaise number 4 is. Yeah, he's under there. He's not really helping me. The decision-making as to where to drop your troops, well, you know, that's part of the strategic element of the game, is especially, you know, it's not that big a deal if you're looking at Prussia or the Pragmatic, but if you're looking at somebody who's got forces spread over different areas, like France is spread all over the hell in creation, it's actually kind of a big deal as to where you want to commit your troops. By putting them here, that means I'm not strengthening this much. Now, like I said, the Pragmatics are viewing this as being so necessary a battle zone, because the French don't have a lot of these left. They could get an automatic victory if things go well for them here. So I may have to drive them back, but they don't have a lot of victory points over here. Taking their own cities doesn't actually hurt them, which is kind of weird. Like, a French victory in Austria could get them a good peace with Austria, which then it doesn't matter how well the Dutch forces are actually performing. And Bavarians were able to find cards that they felt they were very unlikely to use to build up their army, just suits that aren't near where their fighting is likely to be. So they each maxed out to They're 8-point armies. And Prussia added a couple of points as well. What's available is the total number of strength points in all your armies. What's not known is how they're distributed, which you can find out, by probing and attacking and whatnot. The Austrians chose not to build any additional armies. Same as that whole map. No extra armies over there. All right, that pushes us into a new year. And as we said, the 1742 is already set up and ready. After 42, a couple of interesting cards show up. First of all, Spanish intervention, which will move Italy in France's favor, basically. And that's actually worth a victory point. And it'll move the Russians one in whichever direction somebody wants. Obviously, Austria doesn't want that to happen. And this one, the pragmatics may not want this one to happen, which is France gets the Mannheim Electorate, which they already have, so that's not a big deal, but they get a tactical card and 3 extra troops, which remember is like 12 points in tactical points, so that's like a couple of cards there too. Those are 2 very good pro-French cards. The French still have the advantage as to picking the suit, which they may consider. Now, the problem from their side is Prussia would love this one, but they don't particularly want the French to get a victory point. The French are getting kind of close. They're down to 4. And this one here, no one but France wants to have happen for any reason at all. We'll see what ends up coming out of this. France is the person, the player, the most in a position close to winning at this point, and letting them get away with it would be kind of ugly. Now, obviously, they could approach and say, hey, Prussia, you really do want this, you want to get the Russians on your side. But I think what actually is going to happen is probably France will make their choice, but they're going to try to play hard. Other people might as well. Like an important point everybody actually played. Now, the Austrians played big, but they have a reserve that's of a different suit. That doesn't really help them. They're going to get screwed out of both, but we'll see that in a moment. Okay, so now Austria has first shot. They're allowed to play in either card. The next card will be France's, so I pretty much want to deny France the advantage. Whichever one I think is bigger. I think the victory point card is the bigger one, so I am going to freeze that out completely. Which means, let's see what we got here. France can trigger this card, and they get an extra tactical card, which is just an automatic. And then 3 extra troops that I can allocate at this point. The remaining cards go into the reserve. The Austrians play their Hussars. This is going to cut this off again because it's already out of supply. It's going to take 2 hits this time. That's getting kind of painful. And I guess that's about it. We move on to the French Bavarian turn. Now, there's no subsidy right now. I could give one if I want, but the Bavarians seem to have a fairly big hand, so I don't want to align for one. Yeah, basically, except if you're doing it with another player, you kind of can do subsidies as needed. You say, well, I need to give a card to the Bavarians now to fill them out better. But I'm pretty happy with how the Bavarians stand right now. They're actually probably going to be able to capture this. Right? 3, 4. And between the Bavarians and the French, we stomped on one of the Hussies. It comes back, it's no big deal. But the French are down to only 2 remaining victory points. A little bit of action up here, and they could swing things around pretty easily and get an auto victory. Right now, they're in very, very good position. And I would have liked this battle here. I've got a good hand of cards right now You know, but, well, a battle doesn't help me. I don't get any more victory points for battle at this point. So, that brings us to the Prussia-Saxony. And Saxons are kind of trying to put a pincer into play, protecting supply line here, keeping it close, slow movement. Little does Austria know the Prussians actually, with their big hand, have just about nothing that they can play in hearts. But you're not going to want to play a chance on that. I might take a chance at trying to drive the Saxons away. That's kind of a negative thing, though, because that Saxon hand, which actually got a subsidy this turn, and the Saxon army are both things that could end up in my hands pretty easily. As you can see in the chart, yeah, it's far away right now, but it could happen. And I guess that puts us to the Austrians and pragmatics, and we can see if they can do anything to really counter France. You know, Austria is willing to abandon territory to the Prussians. The Prussians are far from victory in order to concentrate a little harder on France. Let's put some maneuvering that, if it weren't for this stupid thing being, you know, right in place, I would be putting a threat on the French supply line there. I may be able to be putting a threat here on the Bavarian supply line. For some reason, the Bavarians did not move their supplies forward. They're supposed to. Let's see. Yeah, they're going to have a hard time because I can drop something in Linz, and I don't think anything can be done about that. So, and that was just a screw up because this could have easily driven down the road, I believe. But we'll let it stand because the French are doing too well. And we move into turn 5. So this turn we got the Imperial election. We still draw a second card. Our two choices here, Sardinia-Piedmont. There was already one that affected Sardinia-Piedmont. But this is going to move things 2 in favor of the French if it's triggered. Pragmatic could do it, but France and Austria are probably the most concerned with this. Although nobody wants that to happen. So we may see people playing for that as a second place card. Although the French, well, they're not going to be able to get... I'm sorry, that's 2 in favor of Austria. But that's good, too, to get it out of the French. You know, it's sort of French aligned right now. The other is Hessian Mercenaries. Whoever gets this gets 3 troops, which immediately you can look at, hey, that's about $12. Almost any card is worth playing for that. French are going to pick their suit, and other players... You know, honestly, I know what these cards are, if I could remember them. So those are both hearts. You know, the amount of time that I spend between turns is much, much greater than the amount of time that's normally spent between turns in a game like this. This is not a game where you take breaks, really, of long nature. There's a level of tactics involved in playing these political cards that I haven't really put into mind. I look at my own cards and try to decide, hey, where am I not going to fight? But what I don't do is I don't look at the other people involved and see, hey, what cards would they hate to lose? What would be horrible for them? Or what has their physical motion on the board kind of indicated that maybe they have a weakness there and don't have an extra card there? Again, I don't know what the hell that would mean in terms of, you know, this linking of the resources used in diplomacy with the resources used, you know, for whatever those are supposed to mean in terms of fighting battles. But, you know, hey, I guess Hessian Mercenaries and Sardinia-Piedmont, you can't have either of those because... I'm challenging you in diamonds over here, and I'm pretty sure you don't have those from the actions you've taken on the board. Like, I'm pretty sure you don't have what it takes to convince either of these, money or whatever, to join your side because you've been avoiding battle in, you know, this square that might have been interesting to you. You know, but that's there. That's part of this game, and like I hold pretty much throughout, I think this is a very interesting game with a lot of little subtle levers and everything, but they don't really map to reality in any reasonable sense. Okay, so we flipped the cards up, and the Prussians did not play. Spades are the trump suit here. So the Austrians get the first choice, and they know the French are going to get the second choice. Now for Austria, this is the better of the cards overall, probably. Nobody else is going to move it. Do I need troops is the question. Yeah, troops would be nice, but I'm going to trigger this thing instead. And then that means the French have the next chance to buy something, which is they can buy 3 troops for 9, and that sounds like a pretty good deal. They're willing to take the second option there, and then the others get buried, stored for later. As you can see, though, this guy's going to end up expending at least 1 card the next time that he charges something in that isn't getting him anything. But he's got some flexibility in the politics because of what he's throwing out there. Things stand right now, although the French have the largest number of electors, chances are very high the Prussians are going to throw in against the French just because they're too close to winning. Which means the French might actually want to convert something like Mainz that otherwise didn't have a lot of value to them. Too bad I'm not in position to do that. What other things do we have? Hey, Prague is French. I did not count that. Mainz. Mainz is that one. Hanover is, are they even on the map? I doubt that they're on the map. I guess the English box has Hanover. So that's kind of probably always there's in Dresden and Berlin. French have Munich. Wonder where. I don't know where Munich is. There we go. Okay. So that's going to be pretty hard to reach too. So I guess the biggies, Dresden and Berlin are electors, yeah. The Bohemian electorate's there. Okay. So yeah, I think we're set. And that means somebody has to take one away from the French, or they're going to win the crown. And they are one of the 2 people who can get it. That puts them within 1 victory point. Now, that doesn't happen until the end of the turn, though. You've got a turn of combat or whatever. So if you're in a close position to try to take an electoral seat, you can do so. I don't know if anybody is. To the play of the Hussies here, we see the Bavarians are out of supply, but the French are back in. They protected themselves, but like I said, I forgot to place that up where it could. So we have to take a loss of the Bavarians, and that's actually a really big deal, because otherwise, 1, 2, 3, I could be here, and if I get the 1 point from that, then just moving out of here, assuming I could maintain supply, which I could have. I could have moved my supply up to there, would mean that it's game over, man, unless somebody took something from the French, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. These Austrians, if left alone by the Saxons, might be able to take something pretty important though there. In fact, it looks like they're going to anyway, and take that electorate away, and take that victory point from the election away. French move the Bavarians back into a position where they're ready to take this. Actually, the French combining here, they're protecting Prague. Somebody's going to have to move them out of there, and only 1 stack can hit. They feel fairly strong in spades, except they're making an attack in spades up here against the Earl of Stair. Now, that could have gone very badly, but he has no spades and nothing to play. He's down 3 points, which means he takes a loss. Now, the fact that you can't play additional cards to cause additional losses means the combat's somewhat less static than you think it is. So I walked into here, I'm not allowed to play a card. I only do the 3 points of losses and retreat him 3 spaces. That the victory goes. Now, I do not get a victory marker. These guys don't lose one. The only reason for this fight was to drive them back so that I can start playing around for control of some of these areas. Did it make a lot of sense? Maybe not. I was putting something at risk that maybe was too much. But there's things in this game that, consequences of decisions that aren't immediately clear. And there's a lot of room to make mistakes or to perform brilliantly in ways that, again, don't necessarily correlate with any kind of reality. There's just a lot of clever mechanisms at play here in the design. That pragmatic army put itself in a position where it's defending the Flemish fortresses here and trying to make an advance here. I'm not able to get to Trier or anything interesting. Luxembourg's not worth anything, and I didn't even conquer it yet. But it is putting me in a position where, hey, maybe I can put some pressure and take some points away from the French if this lasts long enough. That if is a big thing. Did not take Prague. Instead, we moved down here to protect some of these, but we did move through, and we'll be taking Linz if we can win this battle successfully. And depending on how we don't win it, well, actually not really depending, the Bavarians are kind of cut off anyway. We've had 2 cubes removed. Now those get to be put back into play, but when you have a cube taken out of your army, I mean, these guys are going to be out of supply too. When you have a cube taken out of your army, there's going to be a pain aspect to that if you're operating outside of your home country. Prussians, well, they pushed forward, grabbed another territory. They're basically getting their own little playground down here because the Austrians are having to rush down and try to deal with the French before the French win the game. Could there have been some kind of negotiation about that? Yeah, probably. I don't know how much, it depends on how the players are. You could see an Austrian player saying, ooh, got to prevent the French from winning. Or you could also see him saying, well, screw it, man. If you're going to just hurt me, fine. I'll throw my force against you. I'll protect against you taking anything. And let the French just keep rolling. The way I view it, however, is no matter what happens, whether the Prussians agree to that or not, if you don't stop the French are going to win. And it's not like the Prussians are a great threat towards winning the game quite yet. So the Prussians can kind of throw that back on them as, you can win back, your position after the French have been beaten back a little bit. So no, I'm not going to give you any ground there. Austria has to decide how much they want to hammer the Bavarian army. I see no reason not to. I'm in spades. Hey, what chance am I going to be fighting in spades again? We don't know. I started out at +1, but the Bavarians played a 7 card, which puts me at -6 now. Now, I could just reverse that, or I could play for a bigger swing. So, because I know this army is fairly large, -6, of course, I get to retreat it. -4, -2, +5. And I still have my reserves in case they can swing this around again. Well, the Bavarians are out of spades, I think. Yep. So we're talking about a 5-point hit. And I don't know if that counts as an anti-French victory in battle. I don't think so. I think it's only your national forces that count, but I have to look that up. I caught a major mistake I've been making. I've been moving into the enemy space to fight them. It's pretty standard in point-to-point games, not in this system. So you're going to see, I'm going to switch to where you can fight when you're just adjacent instead. But I'll just keep things as they are. Now the retreat itself, the winning player, looks like you can retreat the enemy into stupid places, so I'm going to do that. I see no restriction to that. The general must retreat the full distance, as far away as possible from the winning general. May never enter a city the second time, and may not move through a city of any other containing any other piece. Can retreat through fortresses but not conquer them, and the winning player chooses the retreat path. So I'm going to drive him back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, deep into Austria. That seems a little weird. In fact, a lot weird, to tell you the truth. I'm not saying that you might not sometimes be able to push the enemy in a direction that you weren't counting, but that he wouldn't want to go in. But once you push him initially, it seems like his direction of retreat should head back towards his home country or something. It would be very hard to convince me that I'm actually able to pursue the Bavarians. Well, I'm not even pursuing, but to force the Bavarians back that deep into Austria without my army following it, or without some other effects in here. Again, though, I'm beginning to think you got to play this game as almost an abstract. It really isn't terribly linked to anything. And some days that's going to piss the hell out of me, some days not so much. The sway the Electoral College, the French managed to get the crown for their applicant, and that's a victory point that can't be taken away. That's kind of a cool thing. Ooh, I didn't look up the victory points for the Bavarians, whether or not that costs a French victory point. It does cost the marker, though, which is a big deal. Actually, it does count against the French, so they lose one. And now they're down to three pieces. Seems a lot safer. Of course, they've got one piece permanently allocated to the electoral victory. This one can be modified. The Silesia, likewise, is a permanent one that the Prussians can get. Obviously, permanent victory points are kind of cool, but there aren't enough of them to kind of pad yourself so that you're close to victory no matter what happens. That'll push us into the election has completed. That'll push us into what should be the final turn of the 42 sequence. Let me make sure with the cards, but yeah. Political events this time, both are kind of Russian reduction ones. One's the coup d'etat with Elizabeth taking over from Ivan and Anna. And then the other is Sweden's surrender. Now, strangely, Sweden's surrender actually pushes Russia more into a pro-Prussian position, but it removes Saxony. So Austria has the option on the trump suit. They picked hearts, which just works for them. And then when they saw, hey, Prussia played, and they know Prussia's already got a heart in their pragmatic army isn't able to play. The French chose not to play, even though they could in either of these. They don't really see that they have a dog in this fight. So we reveal, and the Austrians managed to buy second place with a last card play very cheaply. They more or less knew they could do this because France wasn't involved. They know the pragmatics can't go. So the Prussians get their first choice. And what do the Prussians want to do? Here's the question. Austria will cancel this one if I take this one and cancel it so I don't lose Saxony. On the other hand, and I did play high for that, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cancel the Saxon card, and then the Austrians are going to cancel this card. So essentially none of that actually happens. French armies and Bavarians had some supply problems. The French up here, I lost the wagon that I needed. Over here, the Bavarians actually disappeared because that was a destruction of a leader that took away another one of their victory points. They're up to 4 in their bank now, which doesn't look anywhere near as imposing as the 2 did, especially given that they had the electoral vote set up. So they've really kind of been stymied. And now getting these cubes back, it's not just a matter of being able to place it. It costs you 4 tactical points to place it. And it gets placed in one of your major hometown cities. So the Bavarians obviously don't want to play one. Losing one, they're open to losing it if they play it. So they'll wait until they get some reinforcements, I guess, although it might make sense to play it now. Actually, simply because, no, because then it would be covering their hometown. So they'll have to play it after they build their army and move out. Without an army, their whole big deck of cards doesn't matter. So, yeah. And what else? We could always do a withdrawal with the French, and that would, we'd end up with 2 of these back in here, but then we could focus our victory attempts in Flanders instead of worrying about Austria at all. We'd have 2 points kind of put aside, not in play until and unless they go back into Austria. That might be a good idea at this point. Actually, I don't know which way it's rounded, but maybe I can capture another territory if the rounding goes against me, and put, be able to bank 3 instead of 2 or something like that. We'll look that up. But yeah, we got to get out of here, and I think focusing in the Netherlands might be the best answer at this point. Of course, to some extent, that's kind of a abandoned Bavaria, but I don't know. Through everything except the Austrian portion of the Austro-Pragmatic turn. The French starting to pull back a little bit in preparation for leaving. Don't know, they may have grabbed a town. I think they grabbed, oops. I think they grabbed this, which, yeah, I know they grabbed that. And they've got this they can take on their way out, and then they can close the door. It does round up, actually, so we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't even have to take this, but we're probably going to lose something in the meantime. We're not absolutely certain of that, but that's our assumption. Pragmatic, and then falling back here and to where we're automatically in supply here, where we can cover really all of these fortresses and just prevent anything from moving. And that's one of the cool things about the Flanders forts and the borders near there. They tended not to fall easily. So that actually seems to represent pretty nicely with how packed they are. You can position a couple of French units in play and just prevent anything valuable from happening. And then the Pragmatic army moved around, grabbed itself Trier, which takes away a victory point from the French. And yeah, that's not worth shit anymore. Wait. Right, and then moved back here, and I've got this, which they couldn't score because of that army. But I still have to do the Austrian side. Now, the Austrians moved at the same time as the Pragmatic, but I think the Austrian turn is going to be particularly complicated in terms of the thinking. So I just wanted to describe everything that happened in the turn before that. In turn actually wasn't as difficult as I assumed. The big move was up to here, which puts a likelihood Leopold got himself out of position, and I can throw a couple of Hussies down and get him out of supply, and that kills off a unit and puts me in a position where he's not going to be able to take this fort with Frederick, and Leopold's not able to take it at all. And it also puts me in striking range of the supply depot, which is an important thing, because if I can destroy that, that's 4 points of tactical quality and a supply hit and all kind of other stuff. So now Frederick is in a position where he has to react to do something to protect his supply, which is either fall back or fight a battle or whatever. And that puts us to the winter, where we get to buy new troops if we win again. As we push to the beginning of 43, there's something else. A bunch of troops being built. Bavaria built up its army. Everybody knows it's 6 strength points, right? French, I think, built up a few. I don't remember if the Pragmatics did. The Austrians did not build. Saxony couldn't build. They're at full strength. The Prussians rebuilt or built up additional forces. They're pretty close to full strength on what they've got operating down here. Just a matter of the cards that I feel like I can afford to throw in, because they're not going to be as valuable in battle or whatever. But we don't know what they're going to be worth in the political phase. But it does bring yet another one of those, gosh, what could this possibly mean? Which is, which deck of cards you throw cards from. So we don't know now. I mean, there's another whole deck to go, and it may be unlikely that any particular deck. It looks to me like it's likely that there will be one additional deck after the 4 base decks, the way this game has been going. If there's a lot of bloodshed, there'll be more decks shuffled back into the game. But if it is a situation where there's more decks being shuffled back into the game, it may make sense to try to think about, well, what cards from that deck have been played, and does that have any effect? I don't know if it is. I don't know if that kind of thinking can possibly come into it. It's kind of like, the deck management in a CDG type thing, where you're like, oh, well, let's try to make sure this card gets removed so that my deck is better, or I will never have this card again if I play this event or whatever. Well, here you've got something else, which is, and I don't know what it matters, but it may dictate where the battles are fought, because people will be more likely to have cards of that suit. Everybody will be more likely to, so they're more likely to engage in that area, or some kind of weird combination of the deck mechanism along with like whatever the hell's going on in terms of I don't know, however that translates into things. And it's just kind of this, wow, if that is happening, this is just getting weirder and weirder in so many ways. And that's the kind of thing that you would say, wow, that makes this game deeper. Yeah, it does, but it doesn't correlate with anything, and maybe it's not even possible to get any value out of it. But just that psychological mixture with the mechanism itself, because a lot of this game is psychology. You bluff by putting pieces into an area where maybe you don't have great cards, but everybody else will think you do because of that or whatever. And there's probably some opportunity for card counting and everything like that going on too. I'm not going to be touching that kind of level of play here. Anyway, I think this video is far enough along that it would not be a bad idea to stop here and load it up.